Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Optimum Human podcast. Today we're talking to Patricia Pinto. She is a corrective exercise specialist, holistic lifestyle coach, practicing shaman, and an energy medicine healer. Today we're talking to her about training on the men's side of the gym, spiritual awakenings, and how she received a marriage proposal from Warren Buffett. Let's get into the show.
Welcome to the Optimum Human Podcast, the show that interviews the world's top experts in fitness, nutrition, mindset, and beyond. Let's get into the show.
Hello there. Before we get started today, I wanted to let you know that we're having a contest and giving 3 people the opportunity to win 2 free coaching sessions each. All you have to do to enter is to go on iTunes, give us a 5-star review, take a picture or a screen capture, and send it to info@theoptimumhuman.com. Then you'll be entered to win not just 1, but 2 coaching sessions with both Brian and myself. Please note we will be picking winners on July 15th, 2016, so do it today if you want a chance to win some free coaching.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Optimum Human podcast. We're here today with Patricia Pinto. So Patricia, how are you doing today?
I am doing rather well at this very moment, which is all that matters. Thank you.
Awesome, perfect. So the first thing that we like to ask people is, how did you get here? What is your story in 5 minutes or less?
Oh, wow. Are you sure you want to know the answer to that?
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? Actually, if I could derail this train,
Yep.
and I actually just want to kind of know what you do in, like, let's say 2 minutes or less, and then we get into your story and we dig into it a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I am actually certified as a holistic lifestyle coach and corrective exercise specialist, and I'm also a practicing shaman and energy medicine healer. And
Awesome.
I'm co-founder of EVOLMOTION in Irvine, California, where we transform lives through it's a mind, body, spirit approach, if you will, to health, wellness, and fitness.
That is an awesome job title. I'd love to see that on a business card somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, as Brian kind of brought up, how did you get into this path? I mean, we want to really dig deep and figure out, what got you here? What got you to this point, helping people and living an awesome life yourself?
Okay, well, are you ready?
I think I'm ready. Brian, are you ready?
Absolutely.
Put your seatbelts on.
Locked and loaded.
All right. Y'all, I actually had a pretty crazy life, and I shared earlier that I'll be 57 years old in July, and part of me's astounded is how I got to this point and actually lived to be almost 57 years old. My my childhood was filled with late night wake ups to run to the local laundromat or 24-hour liquor store so that a relative could pick us up and protect my mom from my dad's abuse. So you're asking me how I got started, and at this point I'm a no holds barred kind of woman, and the mask has been removed, and the illusion that I was all that and bitchin' and perfect has been dissipated. So I like to get down and dirty with the reality and be vulnerable with who I am, because if I don't do that, then there's no way I can take my clients to their point of vulnerability and healing. So that's why I'm starting with this. Like I said, I had a pretty crazy life, and my mother had to protect us from my father's abuse. So, as little kids, there were 7 children in my family, and I recall being awakened during the early morning hours and even late nights to get out of bed, put your jacket on over your pajamas and your slippers. We got to get out of the house. Dad's coming.
Wow.
And that said, I experienced some sexual abuse as well. And by the age of 19, I was married and a partner in drug trafficking. looking back, I realized that I lived a very violent and volatile life, and my world was violent and volatile, from my home life to the situations I put myself in later. And I will always remember what it felt like to have guns pointed up close and personal in my face. Yeah. Wow. So the stage is set, right? I mean, envision that one. In my early 20s, yep. In my early 20s, I was a high-priced call girl. And wow, how many people tell you that on their podcast?
Not too many.
Okay.
I think that besides Brian, you are the second.
Awesome. How'd you do, Brian? We'll talk about it later.
Not well.
But,
so Patricia, how did you? I mean, this is all fascinating to me. I mean, like it sounds like you've had quite a trip.
Hell yeah.
How did you end up getting into that type of business?
Well, I'll tell you.
Was it because of your partner or?
In part, you know how I got into that aspect of life, because I had no purpose and dream. I came from a poor to middle class to poor family. At one point, my father worked 3 jobs. One of them was a janitor, I recall. And we lost a house. We got foreclosed on. All the furniture was out in the yard. I mean, these kinds of scenes is what I was raised in. And the paradox is that my father was also my mentor and my guide. He was a drill instructor at Camp Pendleton in the Marines here. And he was also a competitive bodybuilder and boxer. So he was the first person that ever took me into the gym years ago. You guys don't recall this, but women were actually not allowed to go into the men's side of the gym. And he took me there under his wing, because he was one of the guys and a competitive bodybuilder. And he says, I'm going to show you what I know. And so I had I had a basic foundation of exercise, fitness, and bodybuilding. But you asked how I got into that life of drug trafficking. Yeah, no purpose and dream, no formal education, no college, dreams of college. So I figured, hey, what the hell? I may as well get married. And yeah, my first husband and I lived at Fort Riley, Kansas, in the middle of the nation. And there's a big drug community there between believe it or not, the Army and the college. So that was one of the things we decided to do to supplement our income, the meager pay of a soldier, an Army soldier, low-rank Army soldier. And, I had no sense of self, so I thought, yeah, sure, why not go along with it? And in addition to that, in my own family, I had uncles that were, drug dealers, higher up than me, that were actually involved with the Mexican mafia. So it was nothing that was foreign to me. I just decided to discover that aspect of life on my own. So he and I got involved and started doing that, and it was a no-brainer,
So you kind of just grew into it.
Yeah, it was a part of my path at that time. It was necessary, believe it or not, just like everything we experience is, if we choose to see it that way. And at that time, I sold heroin, marijuana, acid, and cocaine. And with the heroin, my job was to measure it out, pack it in these, those little tiny balloons we used to make water balloons out of as children.
Yeah.
Well, the tiniest ones you can find, that's how you pack the heroin, and you roll them up really tightly for sale and for hiding on the body, So that was a no-brainer for me. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, I think about it, and a lot of people don't know this, but I'm at the point where, it's going to come out. I'll write a book later and fill it with memoirial details, but
I'd read it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had, had guns to my head. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, when I think about it and I think about what I'm doing now, I say, wow. I mean, how many women do I know personally that can tell a story like this or share their experience the way I can? Well, not even the way I can. Share an experience similar to mine. As far as the women I know, really none of them. I know there are women out there, obviously, because this happens, believe it or not. But many of them don't talk about it because, it's a dysfunctional aspect of their life, and who wants to agree to that they have those aspects, of these skeletons in their closet? Who wants to believe or admit that? Who wants to admit that? Because there's a lot of shame involved. But you know what? It's my experience that until you heal that aspect of self, and the old adage is the truth will set you free. Well, this is the truth of who I was. And then I had to ask myself what it meant for me to be that person, and what does it mean for me now? And once I discovered the truth, then I could start getting deeper and say, okay, well, what does the truth mean for me? And how can I change that? Because that no longer serves me or served me. So I've been in some pretty crazy situations. I was 4 months pregnant and forced to strip naked with 2 guns to my head at this time in my life. And don't feel sorry for me, people. I created it. This was what I asked for. As crazy as it sounds, but I personally believe that we're co-creators in this universe, along with God, great spirit, whoever, we're co-creators. Be careful what you ask for, because you'll get it. Be careful what you pray for, you'll get it. Question is, do you have the courage, the wherewithal, and the wisdom to handle it, live through it, experience it? That's how I see it. But I'll continue. So, I like I said, I set the stage by saying this is my crazy life, but at the same time, I had somebody who took me by under his wing, my father, to teach me about exercise and fitness from a bodybuilding perspective, who was a very structured and disciplined drill instructor, as you can imagine. So, I had a spiritual awakening.
While this was happening,
I was literally, I started the exercise and fitness at about 20 years old. Mm-hmm. My father started to teach me that. But between the age of 17 and 20, because I left Kansas when I was 4 months pregnant, so it was about the time I was 4 months pregnant when I got ripped off, robbed at gunpoint. So when I left Kansas, I came back to California, and my father started teaching me. Obviously he didn't know about my experiences, but I actually did have a spiritual awakening, and I feel we all do. The question is, do we see them when they come, and even though we see them, do we embody them and put meaning to them and use it as an opportunity to grow and evolve? So unfortunately at that time I didn't. I was up all night snorting cocaine by myself, copious amounts. That's when you know you're a true drug addict, when you can party like that by yourself. And I was a single parent with a latchkey kid, because my daughter was probably about 5 years old. So this is a few years later, several years later. I thought that near-death experience with the guns to my head and pregnant was going to be it. I quit dealing, told my husband that night, I'm done. This is crazy. What are you doing? What am I doing? What are we doing? But then I still came back and still partied some more and still continued to deal cocaine. So I was up all night, doing cocaine. And then I forced myself to go to bed because I had to go to work the next day. I got out of bed early because I couldn't sleep, of course. I was all amped on the coke. Get in the shower, and I started showering, getting ready for work. And then all of a sudden, I started to feel such deep emotion. I started to cry, and I didn't know where the tears were coming from. But it wasn't just your typical cry. My heart started to literally ache, and I thought for a split second, oh, crap, are you going to have a heart attack because of all the coke you've done all night? And then spirit, higher self, and spirit said, no, this is not a heart attack. This is your heart aching at the depth of your soul. You are in pain. Now, are you going to pay attention to this pain that you're experiencing and this deep sorrow? So I just kind of kept crying and wow. And then I surrendered. And I said, wow. And I literally said audibly, dear God, you have to help me. I hate my life. I hate who I have become. And I can't do this by myself. That was my moment of spiritual awakening and surrendering, And so at that point, it's just okay, wow, almost as quickly as intensely as it came, it cleared. And then I finished getting ready for work, and la-ti-da went on my merry way. Well, it didn't happen. I didn't quit overnight. Gradually, I started to lose my desire of partying and drugs and, being the go-to gal. And then I discovered you got to get back to your first love. What's going to help you, get through this? Because this lifestyle isn't working for you. It's breaking you down. You're miserable. You're tormented by it. But that was the beginning of my very real transformation. And I began changing my life with my health. I went back to the gym and started to train because my father had given me some experience, and we used to train together. But I started to, actually I used to go to the gym hungover and reek of alcohol. So that's a trippy part about that. And, you know, when I see where I am now, it's like, wow, I really did that. But going back to the gym and focusing on my health, I regained my strength and my flexibility. I noticed that my health started to improve. I started to become stronger. And then is when I truly began to seek true healing. And through the healing, I regained my energy and found profound levels of forgiveness, compassion, and love, first and foremost for myself. So now I can honestly say that at that time in my life, in my mid-20s, that was when I started to awaken to myself and my divine power, the divine power that was within me all along, but I was too blind to see it because I was abusing myself, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a pretty trippy path.
Definitely.
You know?
It's definitely not something you hear about every day.
No, I know. And like I said, you know what, guys? Everybody's got their crap, their skeletons, you know, and I've shared with somebody before, this woman that I met at a business networking group. You know, she was a little woman, and I was there to promote my business and to build networking business relationships. And I was getting ready to leave the meeting, and it was a Hispanic, you know, business networking group. So obviously many Hispanics. And she comes up to me, the tiny little petite Latina woman, and she gave me her business card and asked what I did. And I looked at her card and saw her name, and it said her name, and then underneath her title was community volunteer. And for a split second in my mind, I thought, community volunteer, how the hell is she going to help me build my business? But then as quickly as that thought came in, higher self took over and said, pay attention to what she has to say. Stay here and talk to her. So I went with my instinct. And she says, wow, you know, and she's read my name and my title on my card. She says, how did you get involved in this, in health and wellness? And I said, because I had told her I had a facility in Irvine, the city, you know, next city over. And she obviously knew I was Latina. And so I was a new Latina business owner. And she says, how did you get involved in this business? And I said, well, my father was my mentor, and he taught me everything. And then all of a sudden this feeling came over me again. It's like the gut feeling, the instinct. And you know, I was led to share with her. And I said, I don't know why, but I'm led to share this with you. She said, by the time I was 16, I'd run away 3 times. By my 19th year, I was a seasoned drug trafficker, and I told her the drugs that I sold. And then I said by the time I was in my early 20s, I was a high-priced call girl. And I looked at her. She had tears in her eyes, and I had tears in my eyes. And I thought, wow, I can't believe I'm telling you this. And she says, she thanks me, and she says, you know, she said, I am so grateful that you shared your story with me. She said, I belong to LULAC. And LULAC in this area, and actually throughout the nation, stands for League of United Latin American Citizens. And it was founded during the time of Cesar Chavez. But anyway, she says, I'm a member of LULAC, and I'm going to nominate you for Hispanic Woman of the Year for your life transformation as a new Latina business owner. And then I thought, oh my God, you know, I said, now I realize why I was led to stand here and share and be vulnerable with who I truly was and how I got to this point, because she in turn was going to bless me with an honored recognition of honor for transforming life and part giving back to the community. So, yeah, that's how that story came out.
Amazing.
Yeah, so, you know, I since then, I knew, like I said, that the path of destruction for me was drugs, alcohol, you know, weekends down in Ensenada, and woohoo, yeah, how can I party more?
You're
to
really
health.
thinking that you're living.
Yeah, I'm living. I'm living, you know. And
yeah, but that's the thing. Like when people are doing all that stuff, partying, they think they're really living, and oh, look at those chumps over there.
Yes.
But it's like it's all about your perspective, right?
Absolutely. It's like, really, is the joke on you or me? And who's the joke on, right? You know, the guys that are looking like dorks,
it's
doing
all
walking
in your
lunges
perspective
in the park. Yeah. So
It
yeah.
is. Brian, I know you had a question.
Yeah, I did. I was kind of curious, once you, started to make that transformation, how did you come about that? Did you have a mentor, or, was there a way that you started really getting in touch with, your essence and changing your life around?
Yeah, that's a good question. That makes me ponder, and actually, I've asked myself this before, and I honestly just had this conversation briefly, kind of indirectly, with my business partner Wayne Daniels, and because last week was a very profound week for me in terms of evolution and self-realization, and making some very important decisions, and for me personally. I can't say that there was anybody in particular other than the seed my father had planted into me in regards to health and exercise. I saw him, and like I said, he was a drill instructor. If you have any experience with drill instructors, these guys are rigid, they're disciplined, they're structured, and fitness is huge. You have to be physically fit in order to do what Marines do, and then some. So that was basically where I got my first, he was my first teacher, if you will. But once again, he didn't help me on this path because he didn't even know what I was doing. But that's a whole different story. So I have to honestly say it was almost like it just came to me, it was my destiny, great spirit. This was my soul contract when I came into this world was, wow, you're going to experience A, B, and it's not going to feel good, so that you can experience C, it's going to feel a hell of a lot better, and you're going to help people in experiencing C. So I want to say it was really my father in part, and then my connection to divine source. It just came from deep within me, because I have 6 other siblings, and out of the 7 of us, pretty much, and they'll agree that they all, have their own version of me, and they put me on a certain pedestal and look up to me because I've accomplished what I have accomplished, and many of them still struggle and are still, poor and into drug addiction still to this day. So how did I, out of those 7 children, become the one that was going to step out and face herself and transform her life? I don't know. It's almost a miracle.
I have a question, actually. Did your father take any other siblings to the gym, or was it just you?
No, he took my brothers, but they don't have what I have. See, that's the part that blows me away. He took my brothers, all 3 of them. But, actually one of them is a drug addict today, and the other 2, not so much into the gym, here and there, but no, they're not fit and healthy men. And they'll also be the first to admit that. So how was I the one, to follow that path and really stick to it? Maybe it was because I was a girl and I was looking to please daddy. Maybe, they don't need to please daddy. They were trying to please mom.
It's true.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
I think so.
I'd like to add that we all have this divine power. We do, but it's my belief and experience that in order to access it, we must truly, we've got to awaken to it first and realize that it's available to us. And then we have to choose to dig deep with the support of the divine power that's there and transform ourselves into it. And through it, we can heal our bodies and our mind and our spirit. I mean, I've healed my body, my mind, and my spirit, and I continue to do so. I should be dead. I should be, from overdose or murdered. I had 2 guns pointed to my face when I was 4 months pregnant. All they had to do is blow the trigger. But in hindsight, they made me take my clothes off so that I wouldn't run out in the snow. Not that I was going to run after them when they had guns. But, hey, if she doesn't have any clothes on, she's not going to come out and go call the police or scream at the neighbors. Not that I could do that either, because what were you doing with $4,000 in cash and 200 hits of acid and 4 pounds of pot?
Now,
you know?
Patricia, I mean, I'm just kind of I'm guilty of being just very interested in that story. So could you kind of lay that out for us and just kind of take us through how that happened, how you got there, and
Yeah,
how
you
it
want
was
to? I'll tell
resolved?
you I could tell you verbatim the exact. I can see it. I'll never
Yeah.
forget it. You want to hear that story? How it
Yeah,
happened?
yeah. If you can set
Okay.
it up for us, I'd love to,
Yeah.
because yeah.
Okay. Well, it was Christmas time because my first husband and I lived in, like I said, Fort Riley, Kansas, and we were at home sitting on the floor, cuddling with the warm blanket, watching a great movie. And the Christmas tree was sitting next, standing next to us, all lit up. So it was Christmas time.
Mm.
Nobody was with us. It was probably about, I don't know, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night or something. And there's a knock on the side door. My kitchen was on the side.
And this
So,
is when you're
he
dealing,
looks,
right?
oh, we're in the heart of dealing. Like I said, I had 200 hits of acid in the freezer. You keep
Wow.
it in the freezer to keep it fresh. I had 4 pounds of pot in gallon Ziploc baggies. And I said $4,000, but approximately $3,000 in cash in a leather envelope, like a leather,
Huh,
I don't
that's
know.
classy.
Yeah, yeah. And the money was hidden in the bedroom. I didn't have a safe. The money was in the bedroom. The acid was in the freezer, and the pot, I don't remember, that was probably in the bedroom too somewhere. But there's a knock on the door, and my husband looks at me, and I looked at him. We weren't expecting anybody. He says, I want to go check the door. Okay. So he goes to the door. I'm sitting there watching the movie still, waiting for him to come back. And then all of a sudden I hear shuffling and, body sounds. And I immediately jumped up, what the hell's going on, I think. And so I ran to where he was. And as I'm running towards the kitchen, he's stumbling towards me with his hand over his head and blood's dripping down his head. And, of course, I'm startled. Oh, my God, what's going on? And then it occurred to me, as quickly as I asked what's going on, 2 gunmen come from behind him, and they have guns pointed at me. And he had already fallen to his knees because, you get hit in the head, there's a lot of blood. Pardon?
They pistol whipped them.
Oh, yeah, he got pistol whipped. That's why all the noise and boom,
Yeah. Wow.
And so he's trying to figure it all out. I trust, because of his experience of the gun and the blood and the hitting in the head so hard that he's kind of woozy. But I wasn't woozy. I was very present to what was happening. And I said to myself, oh, my God, what's going on? What have I done? What have I brought on? And they were wearing, from head to toe, they were wearing army fatigues because it was an army town. Everything was covered, but they had masks on with the holes in the eyes and the mouth and the nose. It was very intimidating for me, but yet I had to stand my ground because that was part of who I was. I've been through a lot in my life, even as a child. I'll be damned if you're going to bring me to my knees. But I'll tell you what, you've ever heard of that term, scared the shit out of me? There's something to that. Literally, I felt like I had to go to the bathroom. So don't tell me the mind and body is not connected.
Absolutely.
I know what that's like. I've lived it. But so anyway, he's on the ground, and I, try to tend to him, and I, drag him over to the living room and shut up, sit down. Of course, I wasn't going to scream or anything. And so we're just sitting there, and I started to kind of get tears in my eyes because I realized the importance of what was happening and the situation that I was in. Where's the money? And they're not nice about it. Where's the effing money? And I looked at John, and he kind of nodded, and it's in the bedroom, and where's the drugs? It was a setup. These guys had been to our house before, but we were too stupid
Sounds
to be.
like it.
Yeah, it was just a complete setup. So the pot's in the bedroom, and the acid's in the fridge, but it's in the fridge. You didn't have to say what it was. They knew what they were looking for. And then after that, one of them comes out because one stayed in front, with us with the gun pointed, and the other one comes out of the room. And it's a funny thing, they had actually ripped each other off because he said, there's only, like $1,500 in here. And I looked at John, and we didn't say anything. And I thought, he's lying. He's saying that so he'll tell his friend that's all they had was $1,500. We knew how much money we had. So those guys even ripped each other off. So it's
you
a
mean
dirty
drug
ball
dealers
world.
lie?
You're so funny.
No honor among thieves, I guess.
Right.
Absolutely. And then after that, when they had got what they wanted in the bedroom, so they forced us into the bedroom, and bedroom's in the back of the house. And all of a sudden, my heart started beating even harder. Take your clothes off now, and gulp. And I looked at John. I looked at my first husband, and he nodded at me with like this deep sorrow and, major shame. Like, I can't help you on this one. You're going to have to take your clothes off, right? He didn't have to say it, but he looked at me and gave the nod. And slowly and so full of shame, I started taking off my clothes, and John interjects, literally, please don't hurt her. She's 4 months pregnant. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to rape me, and then they're going to, shoot us both in the head, and we're done. That's what I was thinking. And, so we took our clothes off, face down on the floor, guns at her head. Shut up, don't make any noise. And then I just, what do you do at that point? I closed my eyes, and it's that come to Jesus moment. I swear if I get through this, I'll never do it again. And I'm so sorry. And everything just goes through your head. And then it was really quiet, and, I'm barely breathing because, what am I going to feel? What is it going to feel like to get shot in the head or in the back? It's like all these thoughts, and, oh my God, what about my unborn child? And, so got really quiet, and all of a sudden we hear footsteps running away from our bedroom, and then the door like slam, and then John opens his eyes, and I open my eyes because we realize they're gone, and so we got up and got ourselves together and put our clothes on, and wow, we were just like two ignorant kids. What just happened? And oh my God, we're still alive, and I said, I'm done with this. This is crazy. I what am I doing? And so that's how it happened. And like I said, there's nobody you can call. You call the police, and they're just going to arrest you,
or lock you,
something.
Yeah. Now you have no money, no drugs, so they can't really arrest you except for, possibly filing a false report because you can't prove anything.
Yeah, and then you're going to bring artillery down on your own position because they never, they're not stupid. They go through these things all the time. We were stupid. Yeah.
And then you never know, you might get some vengeance by the guys who ripped you off, or you never know who you're dealing with in that world.
That's right. And so you're just zip your mouth and shut up, take it like a soldier, so to speak. This is what you asked for.
Silence is the best policy. Now I've got a question. I mean, it's shifting gears, but right before we started, when we started recording, you said that you don't like to be called Patty anymore, and I'd like to get into the story behind that. So, obviously, we're calling you Patricia for a reason, and we want to find out, where that empowerment came from and where that decision came from, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that. We all have pet names and formal names, like Danny is formerly Daniel. Ricky is formerly Richard. Well, Patty, Patricia. So up until I was approximately, probably, I want to say 53 years old, 54 years old, 53, I guess, I was called Patty. And then as I really started getting into, and I thought I was fine with that, that's all I knew was Patty. And as I started to heal myself, on these very deep levels, peeling back the layers of who I am and why I came to be where I am today, and facing myself as well, peeling back the layers. What came to me was, wow, you know what? I was really, all those years, a little girl dressed up in a woman's body with high heels and skirts and acting like a woman. But I was really a little girl, a hurt little girl. So as I came to terms to that truth for myself, and began to truly transform my life on a really deep level, because I transformed years ago, but on this really deep level of seeing who I really was and why I got to this point, I realized Patty suits me no more. That name no longer serves me. That name belongs to that hurt little girl that was not integrated. That ego part of hers that was not integrated. you have begun to integrate that little child that still lives in all of us, right? And sometimes that little child acts out when we get pissed off at our spouse or a boss or whatever. Those are tantrums.
That's okay sometimes.
Well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with anger, as long as you know how to you use it without hurting others. We can express anger, absolutely, but when we're doing it to defend ourselves and to make somebody look wrong, then it's not right. It's not fair. It's not serving anybody's purpose.
That's true.
So what came to me is I have to let go of that name, because that's no longer who I am. I'm not a hurt little girl anymore. Those wounded parts of me have done a lot of work to heal and integrate. And that's not to say I'm not always working on myself. I am, but I am no longer that wounded little child. So as I have stepped into my healing capacity, mind, body, and spirit healing capacity, I deserve to be called my formal name, which I feel is very noble, which is Patricia. I am now known as Patricia. I am that woman that I always desired to be. I just didn't know how to get there. So that's how that came about.
That's awesome. Thank you. No, thank you. I mean, that means a lot to us, and a lot of people, they kind of never grow out of it, and it's more. I know. It's not aging. That's not growth, in my opinion.
Right.
It's really just becoming a bigger person, if that makes sense, a more spiritual person, a more aware person. So it's amazing that you've gotten to that point, and your name reflects that. It's your title, after all.
Absolutely. Yep. I carry that now with pride.
Perfect. Now, earlier you had mentioned, just last week you had kind of a major empowerment. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I actually had a couple of what I call, you've heard of the term dark night of the soul, right? Well, in this case, it was a dark morning of the soul. And, I want to premise that by saying that, I see things that I never saw before for myself. And therefore, if I can see them for myself, I can see them within others. And I can see them with the clients that I work with. And one of the things I noticed as I was doing my daily disciplines last week was a hawk. A hawk came into my backyard. As soon as I stepped out into the yard to do my breath work, my walking meditation, I looked up to the sky, which is, part of my ritual in grounding myself. And right when I looked up, the hawk flew onto the telephone pole in the corner of my yard, and it perched up there. And I said, wow. And I said, whoa, first of all, thank you. Thank you for showing up. What message do you have to give to me? As I'm thinking this in my head. And if you read about a hawk, or the spirit medicine of a hawk, or a hawk in general, they have keen vision to see far and to see the details, right? They're awesome hunters. And
Definitely.
Yeah, so I walked away with that and said, oh, wow, you're going to have to really pay attention to something that's going to come your way soon. So, be aware and pay attention, because it's going to be profound when it comes. You're going to have to, be very grounded because you're going to probably have to make some very big decisions. So that was last week. And prior to that, I actually had a dream where this very huge, it was big as the wingspan was as big as a car, a SUV with the length of whatever. And it flew into the living room in my dream, and it was so powerful. So the hawk came to me in the dream with that message, but, I didn't know what it was, and I didn't really spend a lot of time, on asking about that dream and what that dream meant. And then prior to that, I actually had another hawk sighting come in my front yard. It landed on my neighbor's and perched on my neighbor's roof rack, and it's right in front of my house. I went out and took 2 pictures because nobody would have believed me. It was so close. And then as I tried to get closer to it, within like 10 feet, it flew away. So the messages were coming to me, but I didn't see them yet until this last time. Well, last week I had some things happen, and what occurred brought me to my knees in terms of really seeing myself on the deepest level. And it was very painful. And I remember, and when I say very painful, it was another spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakenings for me are very powerful. There's a lot of emotion involved. And many times we don't want to go into that emotion. We don't want to feel that pain because it doesn't feel good. It's like if you've ever been in love with somebody and they break your heart, as we put it, we break our own hearts, but anyway, and you experience that feeling, that's kind of my idea of a spiritual awakening, really getting deep into the emotion, and it's raw. And I had a couple of days like that last week, very uncomfortable, but I stayed in that experience because I knew that there was going to be a valuable lesson. And see, the old Patty would have gone out and said, whatever, not even barely tap into what it meant, and she would have gone out and partied and, a weekend binging of drinking and drugs. So here's the difference of how my life has transformed, and I've healed it. Now I'm in a position where I can see it and ask what it means for me, and then base my, next actions and choices on what it means for me. But the cool thing about that experience last week, those two experiences, was that it really got me to see a part of myself that I didn't want to see. And once I saw it, which was my truth, that old adage, the truth will set you free. You have to know what your truth is first, because you will never be free. So an example of that is, I'm unhappy in this relationship or this marriage. Unless you come to that truth, you're always going to be unhappy in that relationship and marriage. So what is the truth? I hate my job. That's the truth. So once you get to the truth, then you can choose to do something about it. Change your job, change your career. So when I found out what the truth was for me, then I took myself to a next deeper level. Okay, now that I know what my truth is, what am I going to do about it? And how am I going to change that? Because that's not serving me right now. It's keeping me back. It's inhibiting my growth. It's stunting my growth. So if I don't take this truth and do something with it, I will never evolve to the next level. I will be stagnant in my growth and in my life, and therefore I won't be able to help my clients get beyond their stuckness and their stagnant lives. So that was very powerful.
Yeah, it's just like when you're putting something out to the universe, or when you have any sort of business goal or personal goal, you can't be vague,
Yeah.
Being vague is going to get you vague results.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No. Now I do know Brian was telling me that you've kind of rubbed shoulders with some interesting people like Warren Buffett and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So Brian, would you like to ask? I mean, I'm fascinated about both, but I don't know who you want to find out more about.
Absolutely. I'm definitely curious to know about hearing the story about when Warren Buffett proposed to you.
Yeah, well, you know what? I want to say something. Warren Buffett is a great frickin' sport. He's one of the richest men in the world, right? Okay, and he's great sport. So my experience of Warren Buffett is, my former husband. I've been married twice. My former husband is was a real estate business lawyer, and had some very wealthy clients, billionaires. So I was able to, and fortunate enough to travel in that lifestyle at that time. I've experienced 185-foot yachts with two billionaires and flown on their private jets around the world or different areas. And so that said, my ex-husband used to get invited to the it's called NetJets poker invitational, and it's every year at the Wynn in Las Vegas, because Steve Wynn is also and Warren Buffett are partners in NetJets, which is a fleet of private jets for the elite, right? And they sell them or they lease them or whatever. So in business, it would behoove them to treat their NetJet clients to these types of events. And, these are people that are obviously billionaires or multi-millionaires, very well off. So you can't just you can't just take them out to dinner to thank them for their business. So what Warren Buffett and Steve Wynn do is that they have this poker invitational in Vegas at the Wynn Hotel, and we would get invited. People who rented their jets, and that's my former husband's business, used to rent their jets. So in addition to flying on billionaires' jets, I've flown on the corporate jet, right? So we would get invited to go to this weekend poker invitational. So Warren Buffett is there, and he's playing poker all weekend. It's a charity event, so you don't walk away with money, but you can win things. And he mingles with the people, takes pictures. So what happened that time, one of the times I was there, because it was 2 different years that I went and met him, when he got down on his knee, I said, I'm going to take a picture with Warren Buffett. I'm going to go walk up to him. And, I walked up to him and asked him, will you take a picture with me? Oh, sure. He stops dead in his tracks. He was talking with some people. And I said, great. And I called my ex-husband over. He's going to take a picture with us. And before my ex-husband can even get in the picture, Warren Buffett drops on one knee, grabs my hand, and says, will you marry me? And I looked at him and I looked at the camera. I didn't know that the photographer, there's professional photographers everywhere, as you can imagine. I looked at the camera right when he asked me. I said, oh my God, he's asked me to marry him. And I knew it was a joke, but I just didn't expect him to be such a great sport,
Absolutely.
He didn't know who I was. And so I can honestly say that Warren Buffett dropped down on one knee and asked me to marry him.
Oh, too funny.
That's that
awesome.
Story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That is good. I don't know. I'd probably be a little bit jealous if I was your husband at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
No threat there. He's not my type.
Yeah, no, just uber rich. He could just build you a husband.
Yeah.
Now I did see that picture of you and Arnie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So was that at a similar event or?
That was at another, not that type of event. That was at a fundraiser. It was called the New Republicans, and it was obviously a few years, or maybe a couple years, 1 or 2 years before Arnold became governor. They were actually priming him the Republicans were priming him, because I recall when I went to that event, it was also a charity event, raising money, and raising money for him, obviously, in his political arena, whatever it's called. Yeah, and so, but the funniest thing is a couple of things. He's really not that big. He looks huge and big on screen, but that's all camera angle. He's a big guy, don't get me wrong, especially compared to your average. But I offer that he probably wears a little lift in his shoe or something. But I thought he was going to be like 6 something, And the other funny thing about that is we know, based on, history revealing it, that he has like me, a jaded past in a different way. He has a child from another woman, his housekeeper, blah, blah, blah. A lot of stuff was going on then when he was married to Maria. But when I met him, he didn't even look at me. I mean, he's a womanizer, okay? He didn't look at me because he was so programmed and trained, and they knew what his past was like. They wanted to make him seem like this really clean, awesome guy that has no interest in other women, which I thought was really funny because that's not him at all. My first coach, one of my first coaches, his name is Kalman Skolak, and he was a professional bodybuilder back in the day at Goals, and he and Arnold were friends, and he told me some funny stories about Arnold, and it didn't surprise me. So, yeah, there's always more to the picture that meets the eye. So that's what that was all about.
For sure. I think we're going to have to quote you that you said that Arnold looks small. I think that might get him on the show.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll come on, defend himself. Listen, she doesn't know what she was talking about. I had scoliosis and I've been back pain.
Good, then we can take him over to my facility and really show him what movement's all about.
Perfect.
That would be something else.
Yeah.
So speaking of getting people over to your facility, obviously you work with many different people with many different issues or goals. What's the number one thing you see that people have issues with or need your help with?
Wow, that's a big question. Honestly, I'd have to say probably posture, and I'm going to say that because many people, your quote typical trainer, if you will, they don't look at that. I mean, to this day, I can walk into a gym anywhere in the world and number one, feel comfortable because of my experience of my father. And number two, look at people's posture and see that what they're doing on the exercise equipment is really causing more harm than good, but they won't see that themselves because they don't have that awareness or that knowledge. So I'd have to say posture. And also I want to add that in my experience, once you get the posture in proper alignment based on the atlas at the base of your skull, then everything else starts to fall into place. Because when the body is out of alignment, and all those nerves that go up and down the spine affect the body, you can't live life to your fullest, and you're not going to make better choices, and you're not going to have the energy to even make better choices. So I'd probably say it's posture,
No, that's a great answer. I often find the same thing, and I'm sure Brian
Absolutely.
Brian sees the same thing. It's people are now just sitting too much. Their heads are always forward. It's an epidemic. I think.
Yeah, and we know the kinetic chain. If you're, as above, so below. Hey, if your head is out of alignment, then everything else down below is going to be out of alignment. As above, so below. But it's funny because I started. I really got serious into the spiritual aspect of movement and body and health and wellness, the body, health and wellness, after I became CHEK certified, by Paul CHEK and his system and philosophy. But even since then, I'm really creating my own idea. And what I'm focusing right now is women's empowerment through health, wellness, and fitness. And I recall one time, Wayne Daniels is my business partner, and we were up early one morning, and I remember saying, oh my God, if people had a camera and watched what we do every day, they would do one of two things. They would run to the hills as fast as they could, or they would stay and embody it along with us because they see the health benefits and how it's transformed my life, our lives, my life. And so I started thinking about that, and I kind of laughed, and I said, wow, it would be a great reality show, how to transform your life through what Patricia does, And I started thinking about it, and I said, and then in addition to that, about that same time, because I'm building my business, I'd go to these networking groups, and a lot of times I go where, like Holistic Chamber of Commerce or where healers congregate, building their business, and other types. But I started to look at women that were my age and my peers, and even women that are younger than me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I started to realize that they had low life force. They were lethargic. They were either apathetic or indifferent. So they weren't quite happy, but they lived the illusion of being happy, just like I did with that mask for many years. They were overweight. They weren't as fit as they could have been. And they weren't eating well. So therefore, they weren't living life optimally, but they didn't even know it, because maybe if they knew it, they would change it. And then I thought I started to experience some frustration, I want to say with them initially, because I thought it doesn't have to be this way. I just wanted to jump up and down on the rooftops and say, you don't have to experience yourself like this. Look at me. I'm healthy. I'm strong. I have life force energy like never before. And I'm living my life, with purpose and with meaning. And, I thought, what am I going to do about that? Well, you know what? You're going to teach them. You're going to teach them exactly what you do. Take them under your wing and say, here's what I do for myself. Let me teach and guide you. And that's how my women's empowerment program came about, which I'm, working on now. So.
Okay, it's not out or available yet?
No, it's not available, although I did write a little itty-bitty book for a different reason. But no, it's not. I'm actually working on it right now. And It's gosh, I don't foresee it being remotely done until probably at least the end of the year, because it's funny. I have a writing coach that I'm working with, and I wrote so many pieces of paper and hand wrote it, transcribed it into my computer. And, I meet with her on average once a month, and we, discuss it over the phone and my writings and stuff. And she says, okay, I want you to do something. Yeah. I want you to take everything you wrote and just throw it away. She didn't mean throw it away. Put it aside. And that's what I said. I said, no way. I said, are you kidding? Are you kidding? You know how much time and energy I spent and doing this and thinking about it and blah, blah, blah. And she says, this is where your real writing is going to start coming. We needed to get rid of some stuff so we can really hone in on this. And we both decided that my forthcoming book for women's empowerment is going to be more of a manual, and with some pictures and recipes. I mean, people really, I didn't realize this because I'm an expert in my field. I think just because I'm eating really pure and clean, probably 98% of the time that they are too. They're not. They don't even know what it means to cut out bad fats, and to add good fats, So it's the little things. So it's a forthcoming book, and it'll be more of a manual, like a how-to. And the cool thing about it's going to be for women, because I want to see women empowered. I feel this is a time for women's empowerment. I don't mean, kick ass and take names. I just mean stepping back into our power, because we've given ourselves away so many years to meet the needs of others. We need to learn how to meet our own needs so that we can live a life for ourselves. Put the oxygen mask on yourself first so that you can help the others survive.
Absolutely. We were just recently talking about the divine masculine, so you would definitely fall under the divine feminine.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And it's funny because I listen to other women's programs. I just listened to one this morning where they have a bunch of women online. You can join this course. It's a free course. And I'm listening to it, and it resonates with me. But something keeps coming up. They're still missing something, Patricia, that you have that they don't. And I envision myself, teaching the healers, teaching those people. Wow, So,
awesome.
yeah.
Now speaking, sorry, Brian, you go first.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you had mentioned about a itty-bitty book. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's really kind of my little cute book. One of the women in my business networking group, she's a book publisher and, editor, whatever. And she started to promote her business and says, I've got this idea. I'm going to have all these little bitty books made up with different subjects by experts. I'm going to have them give people an opportunity to write a book. And so it's the same premise of the dummy books, right? Computers for Dummies, Gardening for Dummies, Cooking for Dummies. Those books went, global. They did extremely well. They were different themes. Okay, these books are even simpler than that. And so I told her I wanted to work with her. I think it's great credibility. Hey, this is what I know. I'm going to bring it out to the people. Trust me on this one. If you follow it, it'll work. Just like when you work with your clients, right? Do this, and I know because I've done it for myself that it will change your life. And well, she says, okay, great. Well, here's the trick. Or the catch. The books are only going to be 34 pages long. I think it's 34. Only 15 chapters, and they can only be 2 pages each. And my jaw dropped. I thought, how am I going to do that? I have all this information. I've been doing this for approximately 37 years, exercise and fitness, and you want me to put it in 2 pages? And she says, you could do it. And I said, okay. So I scratched my head, and then I said this. Literally, I sat down one day by myself, and I said, okay, how are you going to do this? And I said, you have to keep it so simple. So I said, what does that mean for you? Wow, okay. I used to live in a trailer park in Junction City, Kansas at one time. So I thought, I get it. This is going to be a book about health and healing. It has to be, because that's my field of expertise, and that's what I've done for myself. So I'm going to write these 15 chapters with only 2 pages long. Oh, by the way, the first page can only be a basic, few paragraphs explaining about what your chapter is. The next page 2 of each chapter, can only be tips. So I was very limited. So I said, okay, fine. So I envisioned this morbidly obese woman living in a trailer park in the heart of the Midwest with 6 little children running around her rampant. Okay, so you can imagine the kind of life they lead. So that woman is unhealthy, but she doesn't feel good, but she wants to start feeling better. So I'm going to write a little itty bitty book that she can pick up, somehow get in her hands, pick up, take it into the bathroom, lock the door with the kids behind her, sit on the toilet, read one chapter, look at the next page, and pick 2 tips, and she could start changing and transforming her life. It's that simple. So that's how that book came about. And you know the cool thing about that? In the dedication of the book, one of the dedications is to Paul CHEK. I have 3 of them. One is to Paul, a little paragraph. Paul sent me an email, and I have a relationship with Paul, friendship, more than the average, person. We could go back and forth. And he sent me an email and said, thank you so much for the book. Great job. And you know what? I've been talking about this for years with Vidya, that I need to take my message and make it simple for the average person. And you did that in this book. It's like, wow, thank you for your validation, Paul.
Absolutely.
That's huge.
So that was cool. Yeah.
That's cool. Well, we'll definitely put a link in the show notes to your itty bitty Heal Your Body book.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's on Amazon, and it's also, you can get it to my website.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
We'll put both links. Now, I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I just wanted to ask you a question before handing it over to Brian. Because we were talking about the needs of clients and helping people. What's been your most satisfying experience working with someone and helping heal them?
Thank you for that. Oh, God, that's a great question. Before I became certified, one of the things we have to do is we have to do our case studies, right? Mm-hmm. So she was a case study of mine when I used to live in Laguna Beach, and she made an appointment to come see me, and she knew it was a case study, so she was fine with that because she wanted to, she wanted to get healthier. So I was waiting for her. I looked over my deck down to the driveway, and I saw her drive up, and she pulled up in this, big Jaguar sedan. And she gets out of the car, all that. And she had these big, expensive sunglasses on. And she's overweight. She's a younger woman, younger than me. And she prances up my stairs and meets me inside, up at my house. And then I take her into my kitchen to meet with her. And as soon as she walked into my house, she hands me a gallon-sized Ziploc baggie full of prescription drugs.
Oh, man.
I looked at the drugs. Yeah, drugs for anxiety, insomnia, depression, cholesterol, you name it. So anyway, I looked at it and I said, I can't believe you're taking all these. She was approximately 35 years old. Well, after doing the written assessment with her, I discovered that she had no purpose and dream. She actually stated on her paper, I have a death wish. I want to die by the age of 50, because she had no reason to live. She was so depressed. And then she had a beautiful little son. So, I said, look, I can help you. If you follow this protocol, I can help you. And lo and behold, she followed the protocol. She lost a significant amount of weight. Last time she connected with me, she was off of all but one of the drugs, which she was trying to wean herself from. Her blood pressure had gone down. Her purpose and dream was photography. And she had a renewed experience with her son in her life. And yeah, so that was my most memorable experience. And that was such a joy for me to get that message from her later. Wow, thank you so much for what you did for me. No, thank you for showing up and doing the work. I just guided you. So that
awesome.
was my moment.
Thank you. Thank you for that story. I mean, it just goes to show how much we can impact each other's lives.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to get through to people that, you can help change someone's life and yes, for the better, but also for the worst. So
that's right.
Always try to do things with a positive intention and always try to make the world better,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great advice.
And they definitely have to do the work themselves. Us professionals can guide you. We can give you the how, but the work has to be done by you.
Yeah, it's kind of like Morpheus from The Matrix. I can show you the door, but you got to step through.
Yeah, I love that, dude. That's a great line. Absolutely.
So, wrapping up, question I ask everyone on the show: what is your definition, or who's the first person that comes to mind when I say the optimum human?
Okay. Many people come to mind, so I'm not going to answer it that way. To me, the optimal human is somebody that truly views themselves and their body as a temple. And you can't just view it as a temple. You have to treat it as such by filling it with pure, clean, optimal food. You have to incorporate exercise, movement, even breath work. Breath work brings in the life force energy into the body, and it massages the organs. It awakens you to those dormant parts as well. Meditation and prayer. The optimal human is going to embody all that and not just talk about it and have it in their head as an idea. They're actually going to discipline themselves to do it. You know, I'm staring at it right now as I answer this. I handwrote a postcard on my desk. It says, "My book is a paradigm shift for a whole new breed of woman." Okay? So the optimal human to me is going to be a whole new breed of person, right? They're not going to be stuck in front of the TV with the remote and on their smartphones playing games and hanging out the bars. They're going to be more conscious, more awake, more alive, and more life force energy due to that. So that's my idea of an optimal human.
Awesome. I love that answer.
Awesome.
Me too.
Absolutely. I would hope so.
I'm going to sneak in here. And I always ask the book question. So what are your favorite 3 books?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just, it doesn't even have to be in any field or anything, but just your favorite 3, the ones that you feel like you enjoy the most, or the ones that you feel that have changed your life the most.
Honestly, I can't even say that I have favorite 3 books.
Mine are Daniel Steele, all of them.
Oh, funny. Actually, there was a book, Tom Follett, Pillars of the Earth. That was my favorite book. One of my favorite books. Pillars of the Earth. Yeah, it was just it was a great escape for me. You know, it's set in medieval times, and I love all that stuff. So Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett.
Awesome.
And then I always loved Henry VIII, the Henry VIII, the story of Henry VIII. I escaped in that. It was like I don't know, probably a 6-inch thick book, and I finished it in a week because I was so involved in the story. So yeah, it sounds weird, but I really don't have a bunch of favorite books. I mean, maybe that means right now I'm not an avid reader, and I haven't been for a while, which is okay because I'm on a different path.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, well, you're making books instead of reading them, so
I know.
Okay.
There you go. I'm having the life experience, and then I'm going to write about it. So what can I say? Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Cool.
And Brian, I'm going to leave any remaining wrap-ups to you.
Could it be anybody or
absolutely
related?
Anybody? And then what would you want to hear them talk about?
You know who I'd really like to hear at this point right now in my life? I would love to hear Vidya McNeil, and I would love to hear her discuss her version and idea of the divine feminine.
Okay.
Vidya, I have the utmost respect for her.
I would also be interested in hearing that. I'm definitely interested in both sides of that coin. So perfect.
Cool.
We'll have to see if we can get her on.
Yeah, awesome. Let me know when you do.
Absolutely.
I'm all over that one.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have to lie too much to get her on here.
In my experience, she's a sweet woman and very supportive, so I don't think that's going to be an issue at all.
Oh yeah, I know for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
Thank you for coming on, Patricia. Now, where can we find out more about you? Where can people, reach out to you, or, what's the best way to get a hold of Patricia?
The best way to get a hold of Patricia would be through my website, and that is EVOLMOTION.com, one word. Actually, it's not EVOLMOTION. Apologies. It's evolvethroughmotion.com. Evolvethroughmotion.com. It's one word, and we're still kind of tweaking it out. But you can still contact me via Evolve Through Motion.
Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
That's great.
If anybody wants to, talk further and get help from Patricia, absolutely.
Yeah, and if anyone has follow-up questions you want to hear us ask, please send us emails. Patricia, it seems like we can talk for hours, but we do want to be respectful of your time, and we do know you're writing a book and you have things to tend to, but maybe we'll have you back on when you're launching your new project. That would be pretty exciting, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm actually have a workshop at the end of October or mid-October for women's empowerment, my first one, so I'm pretty excited about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, and it's been a pleasure. I mean, this has been quite a ride for me. So I'm amazed, and you've done so much, and you've changed on such a path. I'm honestly, I'm still in a bit of shock. So
yeah, cool. And you know what? That's what I said. I walk into a business meeting wearing my $650 Ferragamo pumps, and people don't have any idea what I've experienced in my life. And I often wonder, wow, how would they judge me? And I thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. You just live your purpose, your dream, and be authentic to who you truly are. Because look at where you've come from, and that's how I see myself now. And part of that probably comes with maturity. So there you go. Thank you.
Well,
thank you, gentlemen.
You've gained a ton of respect. So thank you. I mean, I really respect you for telling your story and through going all that and just being who you are. So just
absolutely
keep doing it,
Well, that's my plan. Thank you very much for the invitation. I look forward to future discussions and chats.
Perfect.
100%.
All right. Well, thanks so much again, Patricia. And we look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Optimum Human Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to head on over to iTunes and give a 5-star rating and review, which will help spread the word to more awesome listeners just like you. Head on over to theoptimumhuman.com and subscribe to the free newsletter and get the Optimum Human's Blueprint to the Optimum Life. Download it instantly. Thanks for listening.